A growing number of countries are banning travel from the United Kingdom to block a new strain of coronavirus that is sweeping across southern England. Now, the measures are already causing havoc at airports and other travel hubs in the UK, which is now effectively cut off from continental Europe. Now, the governments of Ireland, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, also Denmark, Germany and Poland also on this list, Austria, Italy, and also Bulgaria. All these countries are barring entry for people who are traveling from Britain. More are expected to follow suit. The new coronavirus mutation is believed to spread more quickly, forcing the British government to impose a strict lockdown on the capital, London, and nearby areas.
Some of the last UK passengers to arrive in the Netherlands this year. They arrived in the country just hours after it was announced that all travel from the UK to the Netherlands will be banned for at least 2 weeks. These were the final passengers from London to Belgium, who also shut up their borders to UK travellers. Several other countries across the world followed suit, with many of their nationals having to change travel plans just before Christmas.
Coming home for Christmas, the most important thing is being with family, so I think I just jumped the gun and went to it. That was the idea.
I paid about £250 for a flight last night, but I was meant to come on Wednesday.
Yeah, home for a good while now, so just being safe and quarantining while here and then get to see kind of family and friends.
The EU are holding crisis talks in Brussels on Monday to decide on a coordinated response to the new variant. A compulsory negative test may be one of the prerequisites for travel. Whatever the measure will decide on in 48 hours' time, it's probable the PCR test will be compulsory. That's why I invite people to go and get tested, because there's a delay before getting the result. Until a solution is reached, people and goods will remain stuck within the UK's borders.
Let's get some perspective on this now. We can speak to John Campbell. He's an independent health analyst in the UK, and he joins us for more. Hi, John. Good to have you back on our show. First of all, can you explain to us what is different about this new strain?
So this new strain was first identified in late September, and it appears to have originated in Kent, in England, although that's not necessarily the case, because in England we have a very high level of surveillance. Genomics UK has actually sequenced 140,000 viral samples, so it's a bit difficult to say where it originated. But the difference is that this is a cluster that's characterized by 17 different mutations within the genome of the virus. And that gives rise to 17 amino acid changes in the proteome of the virus, the overall structure of the virus. And the most significant of those mutations is called N501Y. And this is particularly important because this is the 501st amino acid in the spike protein, in the receptor binding domain of the spike protein, which, as you'll know, is the bit that actually latches into the cells. So this has actually changed the potential infectivity of the virus. And we believe that the infectivity of the virus has increased.
Well, Germany's chief virologist here today has said that he's not yet convinced that it is that much more infectious. I mean, how worried are you about this mutation?
Well, we noticed that this mutation was spreading in London. For example, it spread in the last few months from London from being none to about 25% in November to being about 2/3 of cases in London now and throughout the southeast, and it's spreading to other parts of the United Kingdom. So it does appear to be more infectious in terms of correlation, because the areas where the infection has been increasing most dramatically is also the areas where the highest incidence of this mutation has been picked up. But as well as that, there's been studies done in the lab in Porton Down. Now, this isn't published in peer-reviewed data yet, but we're getting reports that this virus is more contagious, is more infectious, and it could be around about 70% more contagious. Now, that's significant because that would increase the R value by 0.4. So it is a potentially significant increase, and it's already spread throughout other parts of the United Kingdom as well. It's in Wales, it's in Scotland, and people when these restrictions were announced, these tier 4 restrictions were announced in London, people like fled London to all parts of the country. So there is the potential for spread. And because it's been around since September, there's also potential that it already is in European countries. It's just that the UK has got a particularly high level of genomic surveillance. So maybe it's just that we picked it up first. This is not really clear yet. But I am concerned it's more infectious. That is the consensus of medical opinion in the UK at the moment.
We'll have to leave it there. John Campbell, independent health analyst, joining us from the UK. Thank you so much for that analysis.
Thank you, Sumi. Thank you.
Let's bring in our correspondents, Birgit Maas in London and Max Sander in Brussels. Birgit, Britain has effectively been blacklisted. Travel from the UK to several countries has been banned. How is Britain reacting to that?
Well, Boris Johnson is holding crisis talks with his cabinet this morning in an emergency meeting, and they need to establish how exactly the UK is affected. There's one concern, which is food supply, because it's not only air travel, it's not only passengers that can't go, but it's also lorries that cannot go to France. And we know that there are already huge queues, so there's no fresh produce for the moment also coming in from France. So that obviously, if that continues, that would be a concern, and so the government will be addressing that. Also, what does it mean for medical supplies? For example, the coronavirus vaccine. There are more batches expected here in the UK, and the government needs to solve how that will come into the country. And it's been reported that military airplanes are on standby. But yes, those are just some of the issues that the cabinet will be debating this morning.
Max, I understand that representatives of the EU countries are planning to meet later to coordinate their response to the new strain of the virus. Could we see even more restrictions imposed here on the continent, perhaps further border closures?
Right, Terry. Well, we have seen some strong reactions from EU leaders from EU countries already over the past 24 hours or so. It really does seem that EU and EU leaders are in panic mode right now, with numbers really out of control and this news of this new strain of virus coming up. Now, the EU Council presidency, headed by Germany, has called for this crisis meeting later today, where they will come together and discuss how to go forward on this. They will try to coordinate response as closely as possible. But it's also important to point out that the EU does not have any competencies in terms of border management, in terms of when a member state opens or closes its borders. That is entirely up to the member states. But we have seen in the past, in the beginning of this pandemic, back in March and April, when member states individually started to close their borders, this plunged a continent in crisis, further into crisis, and the EU is quite keen on not repeating this again. But we'll have to see what comes out of the meeting for exact measures.
Birgit, Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister, he has now put several regions under lockdown, and he's done this just days after his pledge to relax rules over the Christmas period. How's that going down with the British people?
Yes, the government has announced that London and large parts of the south of England are effectively under lockdown. And this is after Boris Johnson had for months really promised that Christmas will be better. Even at the beginning of the pandemic, he has said that everything will be normal by Christmas. That's a promise that he can't keep at all. What's interesting is that he has come under a lot of criticism, pressure, even from his own backbenchers. He's always promised this sort of magical moment at Christmas that people would be, people could be seeing their loved ones, and now, really at the last minute, the government has cancelled that. And the Prime Minister, as recently as last week, the middle of last week, he ridiculed people who were saying the virus is out of control. There needs to be tougher restrictions, and he was ridiculing them for wanting to cancel Christmas. And just 2-3 days later, he has to do exactly that. So a lot of promises when it comes to coronavirus and Christmas that he can't keep, and that's why a lot of British people are very, very disappointed by this.